Hey guys, welcome back to Dixie Belle's YouTube channel for another FFT Friday. It's Lauren here from Furniture Flipping Teacher, and check out the French Provincial Dresser that we're gonna be flipping today. You guys know how much I absolutely love making over French Provincial pieces, and so when I found this on Facebook Marketplace for 60 bucks, I could not pass it up. And when I went and checked it out, it is in impeccable condition. There's a couple of marks where, you know, the finish is coming off or whatever, but the drawers slide in and out so nicely. The hardware is all intact, and I'm excited to get this piece started. We're gonna go ahead and start by removing all the hardware. Of course, we will be cleaning this up and then putting it back on once we've got it all painted and done up. So I'm gonna put it in a bucket here to keep it all together in one spot. The reason that we remove the hardware first before any cleaning is because underneath the hardware, there'll often be tons of dust and dirt that has just gotten behind there over the years, and that part really needs to be cleaned too. That's probably one of the most important parts. So make sure you remember to take the hardware off before you clean. All right, now that we've got all of our hardware in one spot and our drawers taken off, let's go ahead and clean this baby. We're cleaning with some white lightning today, and this is just gonna help get all that grease and grime off of our surface and make it all nice and clean. Just gonna make sure to get all of the surfaces of the dresser, and then we'll move on to the drawers. All right, rinsing is finished. And so now we're gonna let it dry before we move on to any of the damages that need to be repaired. Might be contrary to popular opinion, but my opinion is that I don't really like when these appliques are on dressers. It actually depends on the piece, but for this one, I am gonna remove it. And I've just got a little paint scraper and a hammer, and I'm just gonna lightly tap it and pry it off. I'm going to go ahead and sand this area down and then fill in the holes and any uneven surfaces with Dixie Mud. If you have these appliques and you're like, that kind of dates it a little bit, feel free to just try and get it off. A lot of the times they're glued on and then maybe even pinned on with these pin nails. So really not too hard to come off, and then it sort of just modernizes the piece even that much more. So let's get to sanding. So remember, the reason that we sand before we put any primer on or any paint on is to really give that texture of the dresser a little bit of grit. So we want to have a little bit of adhering going on. So with a glossy texture that we have right now, the paint is just gonna slide right off, and same with the primer. So we really need to sand in order to get a little bit of tooth. I'm gonna use a 220 grit with my Surf Prep sander, and this is also hooked up to a vacuum extractor, which is really awesome because it allows me to sand inside and not worry about all that dust flying around. All right, Dixie Mud time. So Dixie Mud has 3 colors now, actually. They have brown and white, which they've always had, and then they recently added black as well. And what it is basically just a wood filler. It's a pretty soft wood filler. And so I am gonna use it to fill these holes that came when I took the applique off. So I also have a plastic spatula that I'm going to apply it with. And I'm just gonna rub it across the entire area. I'm really focusing on the holes, but also I know that there was a little bit of raised parts that I wanna even out and make all nice and smooth. So I'm just using my Surf Prep Rad Pad, which is a very fine sandpaper, and there's a few different grits you can use. I'm using the super fine, which is the yellow one, and since I don't have too much to sand off, I didn't want to get my whole sander back out, so I'm just doing it by hand real quick. And as you can see, that Dixie Mud did a nice job of filling in these little gouges that I was filling in. As you guys probably have seen behind me for this whole video, my spray tent has been up and I am gonna be spraying this French Provincial Dresser. So I'm gonna start off by spraying a coat of gray Boss. Since Boss is water-based, I feel comfortable putting it in my sprayer. Now, I'm not saying that you can't put oil-based primers or paints into your sprayer, but it's going to be a lot harder for you to clean out. So just keep that in mind. I love that Boss is still a stain blocker, but it's water-based, so super easy cleanup. I've got it all loaded up in my Graco sprayer, and of course I've got my protection to go over my face. And one thing that I always want to reiterate whenever you use your sprayer is before you actually spray on the furniture, take a piece of cardboard or a piece of wood somewhere else besides your furniture and test out your spray pattern. Make sure it's not going on there too thick. Make sure that you're not getting splatters and so on and so forth. You want to make sure that you've got a perfect spray pattern before actually applying it, because if you apply it with that wonky spray pattern, chances are you're going to have to go back, sand it down, and then basically restart everything that you just did. All right, drawers are done, so we're gonna bring in the base of the dresser so that we can paint that as well. All the Boss is on, so that's gonna dry before we get on to the paint. Alrighty, we are ready to put some paint on, and as you can see right here, I'm going to be using a pink color. I'm going to be using Tea Rose by Dixie Belle and their chalk mineral paint line. So I've got it all loaded up in my spraying container, and I did strain it. When you put any paint in your sprayer, you need to make sure to strain it, because any chunks or little specks that could get in there will then go through your sprayer and likely clog it. So definitely strain it. And then I did add a bit of water. I do right around 10% of water into the paint mixture just to thin it out a tad bit, since Dixie Belle's paint is pretty thick. You'll notice that I'm pretty much doing the same process as when I sprayed the Boss, except I didn't water the Boss down at all. And I am gonna make sure that I test my spray pattern, because although I didn't change anything, I did change the paint inside. So I wanna make sure that my spray pattern is still good like I want it to be. All right, so I did get just a tad bit of splatter, and sometimes that'll happen where, you know, you don't really know what's coming out of the sprayer at that time. So if it splatters, just go back, take a little brush and just smooth it out a little bit. If you do it quick enough, it won't be sticky, and you know, I'll be doing another coat, so it really shouldn't mess it up too bad. But I do want to go around with a brush, and I am going to brush the edges where my sprayer missed. You can protect your drawers with plastic if you want to do that, and then that way you can get your edges with your drawers. I do it sometimes that way, or sometimes this time I'm trying a new method where I just use a piece of board that blocks the rest of the drawer. And so I'm not really able to get the complete details painted with my sprayer, but this is also an option where you can go back and just brush on where you missed. All right, so touch-ups are finished, and I'm gonna let coat number 1 dry, and then we'll come back for coat number 2. All right, now we've got both coats of paint on, and Nebraska winters are back. And it's a little bit chilly today. It actually snowed this morning. So here we are in the shop. It's about 37 degrees. I'm not gonna be spraying because it is a little bit too cold, and I've never personally tried to spray either paint or top coat in the very cold temperatures, but I've been in talks with a couple of other flippers, and they say that if it's too cold, sometimes the paint or the top coat will start to drip a little bit before it actually has the chance to dry. So definitely want to avoid any drips. So I'm just gonna go ahead and brush it on. I am gonna be using satin clear coat for the top of this. And then because it's cold, I am going to be also using my mister bottle just a tad bit, just to eliminate any drag that might happen. And then I'm gonna be using the mini angle brush to apply the top coat. All right, the top coat is on, and we're gonna let that dry until we reassemble the dresser. All right, our top coat of satin clear coat dried overnight, and we are ready. It's got a very, very nice finish, just a tad bit of sheen with that satin, as opposed to a gloss finish, which is gonna give you pretty shiny, or a matte finish, which is just gonna be flat and dull. I like the satin because it's in between, and it's not too much, it's not too little. So we're gonna go ahead and move on to the hardware. All I really did was clean this up. I scrubbed it with a toothbrush and some white lightning. So it's still, I decided not to do gold. And that might be the unpopular opinion, but I just wanted to see how the darker patina is going to look with the pink. And I think that really it's gonna look good. It's gonna look different. I think the gold to me sometimes pops too much. Over on my Instagram at FurnitureFlippingTeacher, I a lot of the times host some polls about things that I'm thinking about, helping me make decisions, things like that. And I hosted one over there about the gold or the patina. And as you can see, patina won, but barely. So really at this point, I could have gone with either one, but I'm going with the people on this one, and we're gonna go ahead and try the patina. I got pretty lucky on this dresser because, like I said in the very beginning, it's in such nice condition, especially the insides of the drawers. Now, a lot of the times drawers are lined already, but it's like old and yellowing paper. But honestly, I love this paper and it is in amazing condition, just as the whole rest of the dresser was. So I'm keeping this, and therefore I'm not going to be doing any Big Mama's Butter on the inside to spruce up any of the wood because it's covered by this paper. So that's an option that you should definitely look out for if you are also looking for older furniture. This is a great perk. This is a time saver and a money saver. All right, so just a little bit of simple styling today. That's kind of what I always do, is some simple styling, but I am excited because it is winter time. That means we get to start breaking out the winter staging things, the Christmas staging things. So let's talk a little bit about the piece itself. So remember at the beginning I told you that I got this baby for $60 on Facebook Marketplace, and I am going to be listing it for $300 to $350. And the reason being is because I've sold one that's a 9-drawer French Provincial before, and I sold that for right around that same price. If you want to know how much I end up selling it for, then be sure and follow me over on Instagram at FurnitureFlippingTeacher, and we'll share the profits over there once this baby gets sold. So let's talk about the finish of the dresser. In my opinion, there's no better way to get such a smooth finish than to spray your paint. So obviously I sprayed the Boss, and then I sprayed 2 coats of the tea rose color, and then I ended up brushing on the top coat. And the top coat being brushed on didn't take away any of that quality of the look of it. So I'm really pleased with how it all turned out. Again, the sprayer is gonna help me get that smooth finish, but then it's also gonna help things go just a tad bit faster. You do have to make sure that you do the proper prep work even when you're spraying. I hope I answered a lot of your guys' spraying questions in this video, and if you have any more, be sure to drop them down below and I'll try to get back to them as well. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this. I had a lot of fun doing this flip, and honestly, it turned out just as I had envisioned in my head. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you on the flip side.